Welcome to Game Day Sports Radio Sunday night. This is where we go unscripted and we reveal how most of you did against the Magic 8 Ball, as well as who the chosen one will be that will come on the show this week, present their picks, and go head-to-head against our panel and the Magic 8 Ball. This is unscripted because each week, in addition to updating you on the standings, we are taking Steve Mock off script to get his answers and opinions on some of this weekend's hot topics. With over 30 years of experience covering, analyzing, writing, and even playing, recreationally, sports, Steve is known for his objective insight and unique perspective on all sports. Each week, if there's something you want Steve to answer, please direct message your questions on Instagram to Game Day Sports Radio 1, and we will try to get your questions answered each Sunday night. Steve will not be prepared for the topics or the questions. It'll be totally live and totally unscripted. Steve, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, GC. It's tough to keep up with the 8 Ball. Another big week for the Magic 8 Ball this week.
Another big week. I don't think anybody kept up with the 8 Ball. We'll be revealing that in a few minutes, but I think the 8 Ball definitely saw that going to have a little bit more competition and wanted to let everybody know that it isn't going to be easy. So, which I think was fun, and I think a lot of people are going to be shocked that it's not as easy as everybody thinks just to go and to beat the 8 Ball. So, first and foremost, right out of the gate, want to get your opinion. Paul Chryst just announced within that last hour, fired, relieved of his duties at Wisconsin after losing yesterday to Illinois. What are your thoughts on that, Steve? Right out of the gate.
So a bit of a shocker, especially for a school like Wisconsin to be making the change in season. Although Paul Chryst never seemed like he got his footing up there, didn't seem like a comfortable fit. They've been going through the turnover since Bielema left, and I'll be interested in seeing what Wisconsin does with the next hire. But the message there is don't lose to former coaches.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that's true. But what's your thoughts? I mean, you see more and more coaches, obviously Colorado making a change as well today. Relieving their head coach and their defensive coordinator. 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, Scott Frost out at Nebraska. You see a lot more coaches, being relieved mid-season. Do you think that's a function? I mean, obviously it's a function of recruiting, but do you think that helps the players that are there on the team now, or do you think it basically writes the rest of the season off for them?
Well, it's a little bit of both, but I think if you take a look at what happened with Georgia Tech this week, making that switch, I think – the short-term effect is that it rallies the troops and it sort of cleans the slate and says, hey, this regime is 0-0. We got a fresh start, and really you're playing for your future. So I think it tends to rally the troops and gets everyone's best effort. And it's definitely done so that they can counter the negative recruiting that's going on and try to get a head start on that next hire.
Yeah, I mean, I do think if you go back and do the data points on it, I do think you see a little bit, the team gets a little bit more energized and maybe a little bit more something to prove, and it just does inject a little bit of energy. That said, it kind of brings me to the next topic that one of our fans actually texted in it about. I've got a clip here I'm trying to pull up for you on.
Jeff Spiegel, ABC 3340 Brian. I have no doubts that the players believe in you. How confident are you that you'll be allowed to finish out the season as Auburn's head coach?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's my.
And look, Jeff Spiegel, very well-known reporter here in Alabama, great guy. Don't question him, but obviously that is a topic that everybody wants to talk about. You see it in a lot of press conferences, not just his, but post-game press conference should be, in my opinion, just about the post-game. Should questions like that, kind of an unwritten rule, and I know freedom of the press, but should questions like that take a backseat to maybe a Monday press conference so you can really focus on the game and what the student athletes did during the weekend?
Yeah, I think I would like to see some sort of protocol put in place where we're not talking about it right after the game. And I know these reporters it's sort of a double-edged sword, because if you don't bring it up, they're saying all the fans and all the media want to know if he's going to last the season. But this guy, I mean, his kids, they jumped out to a 17-0 lead. They're putting their blood, sweat, and tears on the line. You got families involved. And I think right after the game is not the appropriate venue to be talking to him about job security.
I guess the other question I got for you too, and again, what value does that question pose for a reporter? He's not going to answer that question. Know that I'm, saying no. I don't think I'll get. I mean, so what's just to get that on the record? I mean, it just doesn't seem like you're going to get any value other than to stir the waters and keep the controversy going.
Yeah, unless you have a loose cannon of a coach who's going to throw something out there, and maybe because he's just out of the heat of the battle of the arena, he's going to be shooting off the cuff with you. But and I think that's why he tries to spring it on him right out of the gate with the first question. But 99 out of 100 coaches are going to say that's not my decision. I hope I get the chance to finish the season, and we're still worrying about next year or this year, and not next year and next jobs. And we can only control what we can control.
Well, we'll jump now into real quick. We got 2 more topics we want to cover from the fans, but we are going to let everybody see how the Magic 8-Ball did this weekend and how our fans did. Excitingly, it's the 8-Ball decided that it didn't like the competition, and it was going to prove that if you were going to bring it, you got to bring it all every week. And, I've highlighted our experts on here because obviously we do not qualify for the competition. The Magic 8-Ball, though, came out to a strong 9-1 start right out of the gate. But then we had 2 of our fans, Wes Cicada, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and Sabrina, 7 wins. But I think it just goes to show that the 8-Ball, as Phoebe says in our opening, is not a toy.
Yeah, so, a lot of people think that, maybe it's a gimmick. And, we've had some people bad-mouthing and saying, oh, that's just luck. It's just a game of chance. But 9-1, there's no arguing with the results. And so, like you said earlier, if someone thinks they're going to come on and try to win that contest that's going on, they are going to have to be strong with their picks, because this week no one was below 500 on our panel, and the 8-Ball gets 9 out of 10. That is taking money to the bank. And
unfortunately, I was really hoping we were going to draw one lucky fan to come on the show this week. Reveal their picks each week. That the fan that is selected goes into the end of the year drawing, where they have the opportunity to win some significant cash and prizes. Now, this doesn't mean this week's a waste, because not only are there going to be the winners from each week go into the drawing, but there will be some of the people will get to enter the drawing based off their yearly performance. The top 10 winners for the season, percentage-wise, who play a minimum of 5 weeks, will also be entered into the end of season drawing, where we'll be drawing for some significant cash and prizes. But this week, no selection to make, nobody to reveal. If you're going to bring it, you got to bring it all, because the 8-Ball doesn't play.
It's still early. I've got confidence that somewhere along the line, maybe even this week, someone will take down the 8-Ball.
I would tell you this week's games will be Purdue and Maryland, Texas and Oklahoma. We've got Arkansas at Mississippi State, Tennessee at LSU. Tennessee very relevant again in the conversation in the SEC. TCU at Kansas. Kansas still entering October, talking football, not looking forward to basketball. Utah at UCLA. Shockingly, Utah is the favorite in that one. North Carolina at Miami. Which North Carolina shows up? The one that played Notre Dame or the one from earlier in the season? BYU at Notre Dame. Again, some questions there. FSU at North Carolina State, and Iowa at Illinois. So those will be out. We'll get those out tonight. Make your picks. Make sure you like and subscribe to us on YouTube. And so you get the notifications. Get your picks in early, because they are cut off at noon on Thursdays. That's when the show comes out. Steve got 2 more topics to talk to you about that some people have emailed in about real quick. One's on Jimbo Fisher. Okay. Now, Jimbo Fisher, and I'm going to share this article with you, came from Saturday Down South, and it talks about how, last year they loved him. The guy walked on water, beat Alabama, even though they kind of limped into the offseason, big recruiting year, but, they attributed a lot of that to, the injuries they had at quarterback. Still a lot of injuries at quarterback, or I wouldn't say injuries, inexperience from those injuries and transfers. Now they want to get rid of him almost, and I wouldn't say the administration, but the fans are really trashing him, as you can see here. But, as I look back on it, people are asking, how much does he owe? It's time to have a national conversation about him. And what is his buyout? But, my question here is, it just seems like he has lost focus to some extent. The football. He's talking a lot more about the offseason issues, what Nick Saban said, NIL. Do you think this is a function that Jimbo Fisher's kind of become more of a PR guy and less of a head football coach and needs to get back to that? Or do you think Do you think he can? What do you think's going on down there?
Yeah, I think that a little bit of overconfidence, winning the recruiting battles and having the number one ranked recruiting class definitely made him start thinking that, maybe he needs to be the czar of college sports and he's going to start pointing fingers at everyone across the country and what they're doing wrong. And again, all that off the field stuff takes away from the on the field preparation. And if you're losing, and again, I think it all depends on how you're losing. He's got the reputation for being an offensive guru and an offensive genius. And if they were losing shootouts, 42-38, things like that, I think that he would not be in the kind of hot water that he is. But when you're supposed to be the genius on that side of the ball and your offense is struggling and they keep making the quarterback switch, and some of it's injury related, but some of it is just ineffectiveness. When they went with Max Johnson, he cannot move the team, and some of it's injury related. Top receiver Anais Smith going down. But I can tell you from having been on that campus recently, coming into the year, the expectations were sky high. They thought they had a top 5 and maybe even their first ever team to make the college football playoff. And you know what? The on-campus stores were filled with Jimbo shirts. I mean, more than any player, the number one merch on campus is Jimbo merch. And the way things are going right now, I have a feeling when I go down in a couple of months for Parents' Day, that merch may be on sale.
Yeah, it could be. Severely discounted. They may be doing it to get his buyout. I don't think so. I think that's premature. But
yeah,
you're never. That's the thing in coaching. You're never as good as they're talking about you, and you're never as bad. There's somewhere in the middle. So, all right, last topic, real quick. Just something interesting. Just want to get your perspective on. Happened yesterday. Lots talked about. Bring up the video here for you. Ohio State Rutgers.
We're excited to see each other before the game, both from Australia.
Call for punt.
Oh, he's going to fake it, keep it, and why not? I mean, and then a late
and you get a guy ejected for a hit out of bounds.
On the end of this, and Crookshank is the one
coaches
that
get
hit
into
him.
it, flags, ejections,
State's
okay. And I'm not calling out the player because I think it's been much reported that Ryan Day did not. He did not make that call for. He did not make the call for the fake punt. It's something that the player took. But two questions for you. One, should the player kind of understand the situation in that circumstance and maybe not have run that and just gone ahead and punted it? But two, you hear a lot of times where coaches get accused of running it up. But if you look there too, it appears Rutgers somewhat laid down. I mean, they didn't really rush. They were already getting back. They left it wide open. Again, you kind of see the same thing. Coaches 9 minutes left. Trying to run out the clock, and a running back breaks a big hole because the defense is kind of going half-hearted, and you can't tell the running back just to fall down after 20 yards. So two questions. One, should the player kind of have a better understanding of where he's at and not have done that? Or two, what responsibility does the losing team or the team that's down so much bear in a situation like that?
Yeah, I'll take the second part first. I think the losing team, the team that is getting blown out, has some responsibility there. And again, they don't have to sell out and try to block the punt. But when you look at that replay, they don't have a guy within 50 yards over there. And then the second part, as far as running it up and should the player know, if the coach says to him before he goes out on the field, hey, no fakes, we got this game in hand, just kick the ball no matter what. That's one thing, but he's an Australian rules kind of kicker. He starts running toward the right side of the formation to kick the ball anyway. And if he looks up and there's not anyone around him, I certainly don't blame him for running that ball. And then, the other team, are they going to a knee every time they have it? If they stop trying, no, they're trying to score. So I think we've got a competition here. I don't blame the team that ran the fake punt, even if it was, maybe not in good taste.
Yeah, I think it's just player being a player. Hell, I remember you going head first into third base years ago just to get a beer. The competition, the emotion gets the player, gets the best of you. But, and again, I don't know if I would call, yes, late hit out of bounds. I don't know if that was malicious. I think the player was going out of bounds. He took a shot, and rightfully so, ejected. But then I think it was unfortunate too that the head coaches, because they kind of know that they get into it afterwards and that emotion spills over, because that's where I think in that situation they need to be the ones leading their team. And I think they were the one. I think that was probably the most disappointing thing in that exchange for me. Not so much that it happened, but the way they handled it.
Yeah, I agree, because you mentioned maybe Jimbo being a little distracted. It seems like with Mr. Schiano out of Rutgers, a lot of the drama seems to be with off the field stuff, and what he's doing coming on the field and racing all the way across to try to get into it with Ryan Day. I have no idea, but he's certainly not setting a good example for the young men that he's supposed to be mentoring.
No, I agree. And if you know Ryan Day, I mean, I don't think that's just not his style. And I don't think there's any question that he didn't call that. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think there's any question that he probably would have addressed it with his punter in the locker room, saying, "Hey, man, we don't need to be doing that in that situation," because if he didn't, maybe it's understood. And I don't think he would have reprimanded him or got on him, but I think he would have taught him. He would have used it as a teaching moment. And but then again, now you get coaches going at it, and it's just very unfortunate situation. But all right, Steve. Well, hopefully you'll be able to beat the 8 Ball next week. You still stay. You've been the most consistent in your performance, but 9-1 I think is going to be tough for anybody to beat. And we look forward to hopefully next Sunday revealing a fan that's going to be joining us on the show. And I look forward to talking to you this week and then making our picks online. So thanks for joining us, and have a great week.
Very good. You do the same, GC.
Thanks, bud. Talk to you.